Hi guys, welcome to my channel Practical Reefer. My name is Mark. This is week 2 of my 20-gallon budget reef tank build, where every week I will show you step by step absolutely everything you will need to set up and run a reef tank for a whole year for just £500. This week I'm going to show you a low cost and simple method to collect natural seawater for use in your tank, and I'm also going to cover some key points that you need to watch out for while you're doing it and things to avoid. So let's start looking through that now. So guys, I've spent a lot of time putting research into the natural seawater because I wasn't sure first myself. I looked online a lot and on YouTube and found it was very limited, the amount of information that was available. The best source I found recently is a Facebook group in the UK called Natural Seawater Users UK. There's a lot of people in there that absolutely swear by it, and they share photos of their tanks and videos of their tanks and after water changes and things just to show what they've been doing, and they share how they collect their water as well. So what I'm trying to do in this video is just put together what's generally accepted as the sort of best practice really of what most people are doing, and a lot of tips that I've seen over the past few months on there, and a few bits of info I've found in like on websites and things like that as well, that just to try and add into that. So check out the group, it's Natural Seawater Users UK. There's a lot of helpful people on there that will give you advice, and as well things like where's the best place to collect water in my area. There's known spots that these guys are all using all the time, and if you are posting things like that, people might even make an offer to say, meet me down there and I'll fill up your containers for you. So you might not even need to go and buy all this kit. Maybe an easy way for you to get in and get started, or even just if you've already got a reef tank and you want to try natural seawater before going out and buying all this kit, someone might offer to fill up your containers and let you do a few water changes with it and see how you like it. But yeah, try that group. There's a lot of good info in there, but I'm hoping to bring all that together in this video just as a good starting point anyway. And I'm just going to go over some best practice points. I've seen some people on the pages and they just use a bucket and they go to either a beach or a boat ramp and just collect the water, and they've had success with it for years and they have beautiful tanks. Some of that might be down to a little bit of luck as well, where you've got a nice beach with crystal clear water, and that's great. Some people don't like using the beach because it's considered maybe like the skimmer cup of the ocean, and it's almost like you're skimming from a protein skimmer that's the foam on the beach. Other people use pumps and things, and they'll go a little bit further out and come off of a harbour pier wall or a jetty or something like that. Absolute best practice would be to head out on a boat, a couple of miles, and pump the water from a few metres below the surface, but it's really not practical for the majority of people. Things that you want to avoid is collecting after heavy rain or near where the rivers run into the sea, so this can affect the salinity of the water that you're collecting. Any sources of pollution, so like heavy industry, busy working harbours, or any pipes that run into the sea that might have a discharge of pollution, or any farmland where like pesticides and fertilisers can run off into the sea and affect that'll be in the water that you're going to eventually collect. Best practice of the things that you want to be doing is collecting an hour before high tide when all that fresh seawater's come in from out at sea. Collect as far out as possible, so using like a jetty or a pier or something like that. Collect from deep water, so not shallow water at the beach, because you're trying to avoid all the surface scum or any pollution on the surface. And then also when you do collect it, store it in an airtight container and keep it in the dark. So guys, the benefits of using natural seawater is it's very low cost. The setup I'm going to show you here is less than £10 to get you started collecting the water. So it's just a bit of time and some fuel to go and collect it. This means that you can do bigger and more frequent water changes without the additional cost of making RO water and adding salt to it and mixing that as well. And for this budget build, we don't have a skimmer or a refugium or a sump to do sort of heavy filtration. So, extra water changes and frequent water changes is going to be part of the maintenance of the tank. It has all the elements that your corals are going to need. I did see there was a video, I think it was Aaron's Aquarium, that does a little talk on natural seawater, and there was talk of someone looking to do sort of area specific salt mixes for, say, corals that are in Fiji or the Bahamas or wherever it may be. But when they did that ICP testing in different parts of the world, all the results came back very much the same. So even though there might have been corals that use more calcium in one area than another, the volume of seawater is always going to produce or provide the elements that they need. So in terms of doing a region-specific salt mix, it kind of got thrown out the window. Obviously, if you do have sort of high use or high demand corals, you're going to need to dose for those, whether you use natural seawater or a salt mix anyway, so it doesn't make a difference there. And it's also full of beneficial microorganisms which will feature corals as well, stuff that they would find naturally out in the wild, whereas they don't get that normally in a reef tank in a house. And it does also store well for months. I've seen many people on the Facebook group have stored it for months at a time with no issue. And I've also seen there's a company in London, I believe, that did some testing. I think they'd stored it for about 6 months and did some ICP testing, and everything was fine. There was no issues with the water if it had been stored properly. So obviously in an airtight container and out of sunlight, so that was fine. So no problems with that there. So guys, the kit I plan to use is here. I've got a couple of standard 15 litre buckets, which are about £1.50 out of pretty much any like B&Q, tool station, Screwfix, somewhere like that. I've also got 30 metres of nylon rope. This is a 60 kilogram maximum load and a 500 kilogram breaking strength, so absolutely more than what we need for today. And this was about £4 for 30 metres off of Amazon. What I do plan to use for storing my natural seawater and my RO water for top-offs is 25 litre containers. I've seen them for sale quite commonly on like Facebook Marketplace for sort of maybe £1, £2, £3 each. There's a lot of companies that will use these like for commercial industrial use for buying in bulk liquids. So it could be like flavoured water or an ingredient or deionised water, something like that. Something that's non-toxic. And then they've got these spare containers which they'll sell for fairly cheap. So have a look around and you'll find those. But what I'm having to use at the moment, because I happen to have them because of COVID, I'm not going to be travelling about to buy some containers when I've got something that'll do the job for now, is these AdBlue containers. So you'll see these at most petrol stations. It's an additive to go into a system which helps with diesel emissions on large diesel vehicles. So I've got these out, I've washed them out thoroughly a number of times, and that's what I'm going to be using to collect the water for me just now. One thing I did try and I had high hopes for was a drill operated pump, which I got off eBay for about £7, and then I bought some hose as well. It failed on the head height for me. I need about 5 feet to get from the surface of the water to where I can stand, and then I'd probably want another couple of feet just to get it up and over into the container. So this only got about 3 feet when I tested it in the house, which isn't good enough for what I'm trying to do. I also decided if it was going to work, it works okay for transferring water from one container to another, but you're absolutely thrashing your drill. They're not really built for continuous use, and you know, £100 plus decent cordless drill, didn't really want to be, you know, using it like that, and especially around salt water. It's not really intended for continuous use, and it's okay with a pump that's like a sealed unit, but I wasn't going to do that to my drill. The other option that seems to be quite popular is sort of 12 volt bilge or transfer pumps, which have a reasonable head height on them, and then also a 12 volt leisure battery and then a section of hose. So I looked at that. You're probably talking about 40 quid to get started with an option like that, but that is something else that you can do. My plan is to use the local harbour, which is now very quiet. It's got a couple of small fishing boats and a few leisure boats, but it's not a busy working harbour as such. Go out as far as I can on the harbour pier and collect from the side facing out into the open sea, not from inside the harbour. I'm going to lower down one of these AdBlue containers with the lid off and a weight attached to the handle. So these are quite nice sturdy handles that they've got on there. What I'm using temporarily is just a 4 kilogram kettlebell, which I've stolen, and what you could use instead is a 2 litre water bottle. If you filled that with building sand and then topped it up with a bit of water, sort of wet sand, it would weigh about 4 kilograms as well. What I'll also have is a 3mm hole drilled into the bottom, and as it is pulled down by the weight with the lid off, air is going to escape out the top, and the container should fill. What you'll find is that it will fully submerge, so when there's a couple of litres of air left in the top, it's not going to be enough to keep a 4 kilogram weight suspended in the water. The weight is going to start to pull it well under the water surface, and you'll be able to just watch for bubbles coming out the top of the container, or well, the bottom of the container, which will be upside down, and when the bubbles stop coming out, it's time to retrieve it. And I do have a test here, so I'll just show you. I've got a container here with water in it with the 3mm hole drilled in the bottom. It also has the weight attached. So I've got here 15 feet of rope attached. I've also tied some knots in there just for making it easier to grip when things are wet and such. So there's a 15 feet length of rope in there. I gave myself, there's a 5 foot drop, and then I want a few feet to work with, and then also tied some knots in that stuff. So keep a bit extra there. I've got the kettlebell, which you can't quite see there. So here's the container which I've got, and this has water in it, and this is the stolen kettlebell, which will be returned. So when you're retrieving it, water's obviously going to leak out the container, but very, very slowly. So here's the container. You know, it comes out at a fair rate, but you know, if you take 30 seconds to retrieve that, it's not going to be more than 100 ml, 200 ml, and you can just, and you've got more than enough time to get that up. Take your time, and then take an empty container. Use the nozzles that come with the AdBlue, so when you remove the lid you can pop a nozzle on there, and then you can put the full container on top, and then just let it drain into an empty container. Pop the lid on that one. You might need to do it 1 and a bit times to get one full, and then obviously just carry on the process until you've got all your containers filled up. So guys, now that I've shown you the plan of how I'm going to do it, I'm going to show you a few clips of me collecting the water. So guys, just at my local harbour, sorry for the sound, it's a bit windy down here. I've got a couple of tubs here, I'm going to get some more water, and I'll show you how I do that. So guys, that's me finished. I've collected the 3 containers there, just 15 minutes before high tide now, so not too bad time wise, but pretty happy with that. So guys, as you can see from the video there, my jerry rig solution, if you want to call it that, it worked really well, and I'm really happy with how it went. The 3mm hole let the air escape out the bottom of the container, and obviously filled from underneath the surface of the water. You could potentially add a second hole, and it would allow it to fill quicker. I did time it back on the videos, and it took about 2.5 minutes for the container to fill with the 10 litres of water for me to be able to then retrieve it. And I literally only lost, you know, maybe 100 or 200 mils of water. As I was saying, I probably lost a little bit more out of the opening of the bottle as it sort of sloshed about coming out. So yeah, other than that, a little bit tricky when you're trying to stop an empty container blowing about in the wind and to put the full container on top. So taking a friend or a partner might be helpful. So that's the only thing I would say, and it isn't the minimum effort solution. Is a little bit of a workout. There's a wee bit of effort carrying the containers about and having to retrieve the water, but it's a good way to get your foot in the door. And as I say, I might add a second hole, and it would allow it to fill quicker. But I'm quite happy with the 1 3mm hole, because 2.5 minutes is nothing. A couple of things to watch when you're doing this. I made sure to kneel at the water's edge and kind of lean away from the water rather than leaning over into it, because you don't want to fall in. I am about 14 stone plus of 5'5", so if you're a bit smaller than me, you're a bit slighter, lower BMI, you might want to just be careful with what you're doing. I'm quite happy that I can pull up a 14 kilogram load, because 10 litres of water and a 4 kilogram weight is 14 kilograms. So you could maybe downsize this idea to a sturdy 5 litre container with a 2 kilogram weight, and then it's only 7 kilograms that you're going to pull up. And just be careful how you hold onto the rope. At first I had it wrapped around my wrist and my hand, so I wasn't able to let go. And obviously I had a little thought while I was doing that if anything pulled on it somehow, or a surge of water tried to take the container, and I wasn't steady, it could have pulled on me. So then I made the decision just to hold on to a couple of the knots nice and tightly, and it was totally fine. But obviously you don't want to have a situation where you can't let go of a rope that's trying to pull you into the water. What I probably would do differently is also, I got 30 metres of this rope and I only cut off 15 feet to do what I needed to do. Probably cut off 15 metres this time. Tied it into the handrail, which was further back on the pier, and then I could secure it on that. I had more than enough to work with, doing what I need to do, and just carry on. But then obviously then you could stand and look at your phone if you want while it's waiting to sink, or have a look at the nice views. But then you're not worried about holding onto the rope the whole time while it's in the water. So guys, now we've got our natural seawater. Some people will just go straight ahead and dump it into their tank. Other people will take some other measures. They'll either run it through some floss or carbon, or maybe even go as far as run it through UV. I think the thought there is to kill off any potential pests. but that for me takes away the benefit of all the microorganisms which will feed the corals in your tank. And I think as well, being in the UK, a lot of the pests that we really worry about in our tanks aren't native to the water here. So it's a decision for you to make, but lots of people just put this straight in their tank. Lots of people will, do a little bit of filtration on it before they put it in, but my intention is just to not use the bottom, because the water was quite choppy when I collected it. There was some sand suspended or some particles suspended in the water which have settled out now. So not to say it's 100% risk-free, but I'm certainly going to use it, and I'm going to document it through building up my tank as well, so you'll be able to see that as well. But also check out that Facebook page, the Natural Seawater Users UK. There's lots of evidence on there of people using it as well, and I've seen enough on there to be confident to use it myself. What we'll at least do is let it warm up. Chances are I won't be collecting it the same day as I do a water change anyway, depending on my schedule. But what we'll do as well, I'll probably do another little separate video in the next week. I'll do some testing on it. I'll do the ammonia, nitrate, nitrite, phosphate, alkalinity. I'll do the salinity as well, and let you see that. But I just thought I'd show you how I collect it for you guys. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and you found it useful. I find with things like this, because there's not an industry around it, there isn't a lot of information on websites that's sort of solid information. It's all very much a sort of gathering of other people's personal experiences. So I thought I'd just try and put a lot of that together in this video, as that's what I'm going to be using for my tank. Pretty happy with the way I'm doing it. It's maybe a little bit more complicated, but because I've got that bigger drop on my closest place to collect from, I found that using that container was an easier way to do it for me. I'll give an honourable mention to the bucket and rope. People do use it. I find they tend to use it when there's not as big a drop, because my issue was trying to get a bucket to scoop water 5 feet below you. I would have probably also had to have used a little weight on there to get the bucket to sink into the water, then scoop it back up. But then an open bucket, I felt would be quite a lot of spilling about, and then I've got to try and pour it into a container, which again I could get a funnel or something like that, so it wouldn't be too bad. But I think that the method I've got there with the containers I happen to have, it worked for me. But yeah guys, give me a like and subscribe below, and join me next week where I'm going to be pre-cycling my live rock in a spare container. So that'll give me a few weeks to set up the tank and all the other equipment while that's starting to cycle away separately. So it'll give me a little bit of a head start when I get the tank set up. But thanks very much guys, and I'll see you next week.